Hello and welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper. This is episode 2 and I'm excited to be here. I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit weird. I am recovering from some sort of virus and I sound like a very deep man, but we're just going to go with it. Today, I really wanted to talk about something that I feel like I've been secretly shouting from the rooftops. Like I feel like I try to get this message across sometimes when I'm in conversations or in different videos, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people aren't really ready to hear it, or they like the idea, but they don't apply it. And it's this idea about how politics and about how the two-party system has ruined us as people, as human beings, as a whole collective of people who are not that different from each other. And before I get into this, I just want to say I'm not going to get political. I have my own opinions and my own beliefs, but I really and truly believe that at the end of the day, the healthiest place to be is really kind of a point of neutrality, a point in the middle. Because one, being in kind of a neutral space, politically, just in general with your beliefs, does two things. One, it kind of proves that you have done some critical thinking and that you don't necessarily blindly just buy in to something that that either party is telling you. You don't buy into everything that they're saying. And the other thing is that you are harder to manipulate. So, that kind of goes with the first point, but you're harder to manipulate. You're not going to just blindly believe something. You're really standing in the middle to say, I don't want to be an extremist on either side. I don't want to be extremely bent this way or extremely bent that way. And, from a spiritual standpoint, if you listen to different people who, there's been a lot of talk online about different astrologers or psychics or what have you, who predicted the election this way or who predicted this event to go that way. And, I'll listen to different podcasts or whatever. And I have always found that if I can ever tell that somebody has a really strong belief in one way or the other, I don't feel like that person is somebody that I want to take predictions from, because I feel like if you really are, have your heart set on one thing, that is going to sway how you feel about it and therefore what you predict may happen. And I think we, have seen that. I think we've all seen that, on both sides one way or another over the years. It's kind of like when a woman is pregnant, they have done studies on a mom's intuition of what the gender of the baby will be. And what they found was, I think it was 75% of the time, pretty sure this was a Harvard study, 75% of the time, the mom's intuition on what the gender would be was correct unless she had a preference, in which case it threw it off. She was no longer right most of the time if she had a preference. So it just goes to show, I'm just using that as an example to say, if you have a preference one way or another, it's really hard for you to tap into your intuition or into your psychic abilities. If you have those and you tap into those, maintaining a neutral or as neutral as you can be. It doesn't mean you don't have opinions about anything, but recognizing that having a neutral mindset kind of puts you in a very unmanipulatable place, and recognizing that neither side is perfect, neither side is as evil maybe as the other side thinks. That is truly the only place that you can be, I think, and really grow and evolve. And that doesn't mean that you can't vote, that you're not allowed to have opinions, but it means that you're not so triggered and not so close-minded that you hear a TikTok video or you hear something on the news and you just take it to the bank and think, this is the end all be all, and how dare, how dare that other party even think, because at the end of the day, I really believe that most people, not all people, most people on either side are good people who want good things for other people. But it's the perspectives of how we get there and what exactly that should look like. Those perspectives can be twisted and manipulated, because at the end of the day, I think that there is a way for most people to agree and to have what most people want. But the way that this two-party system has kind of evolved, it's just become a war zone. It has become this monster of, if you're on this side, they are the enemy, and if you're on that side, they are the enemy. And that has put us in such a low vibrational, in such an angry and just like hate-filled sort of space. And just strictly speaking across the board, you cannot be in a state of growth if you are filled with anger and bitterness and hatred and all of that. So this is something that I've thought about for a long time, but I feel like it's really relevant right now because even though we've had an election, and there's some people that are happy and there's some people that are really unhappy, we're still in that. You know what I mean? This hasn't really solved anything. We're still in a place of anger and hatred and either side trying to uproot the other side. What if instead of doing that, what if we all, not all, maybe that's kind of a big ask. What if many of us started to see through that division and started to overcome it and started to take on this mindset of it's not this party against that party, it's the people against the government. I would say over the years, regardless of your preferences for a party, that most people have seen that the overarching ways of the government and the control and all of those things are really bad for us as human beings, as a collective. That regardless of the party, there is coercion and corruption and there is bad people with bad intentions on either side. And if we as a collective were able to really kind of challenge ourselves to look inside and be like, okay, let's self-reflect for a minute. What if we separated the party itself, the government itself, from the people who support a party and recognize that people on both sides want good things? They're angry because they feel like they're not able to get the other party to see what they see. And usually it is a topic of what is good for people, what is best for humanity. In contrast, do I think that our government in general, do I think that our government as a whole has what is best for people, what is best for humanity in mind? No, I don't. And I would think a lot of people would agree with that. Again, understanding I'm not talking about a particular party, but the system as a whole. And honestly, I just want this to be more of a conversation that we're having more often because people are talking about it, but I don't think they're talking about it enough. And I think it's because so many people are just getting triggered and then responding. If you start scrolling on TikTok or something, but especially TikTok and YouTube, you see a lot of triggered people responding, commenting, pointing something out that may or may not be true at all on a political topic because it triggers people and it makes people mad. And I know because I've been that person before, right? Especially like back in 2020, I remember just being so mad and talking about this topic and that topic and posting it on my social media. And then I got to a point where I was like, wait a minute. All this is doing is making me mad and making me angry. I feel angry all the time. I'm walking around carrying all this anger with me. And at the end of the day, people who don't agree with me feel very strongly about their own opinion. And they're entitled to that, and they have reasons that they are entitled to their own opinion, and I'm not changing their mind. Just like I was pretty stubborn, and most people weren't going to change my mind either. So what was I doing? Nothing. I was just making myself angry. And at the end of the day, it wasn't empowering me. It wasn't empowering other people because most people either already agreed with me or didn't and weren't going to listen to me anyway. And so we get stuck in these echo chambers, especially online, over and over again. You're only watching the news that agrees with your political party, and you're only getting videos on your feed that agrees with your political party. And so you're just stuck in an echo chamber on either side. First of all, it's hard to critically think if you're only getting, one-sided content and you're not really open to understanding the other side. And all of that information coming in over and over again, it kind of is like gas on a fire, right? It keeps hyping us up and making us more mad and oh, that happened and oh, that happened. And then you watch these videos and you realize that, oh, maybe that was taken out of context, or maybe that is not actually how that went. And you realize that not everything is that black and white anyway. And a lot of us are just mad, and it's not really helping anything. It's only hurting ourselves. And it's also creating this huge divide between us and other groups of people, which at the end of the day is exactly the opposite of the direction that we need to be heading in. We're going into, Pluto just went into Aquarius. Like, this is the age of humanity and collective and the people and, people coming together and supporting each other and what is best for the people as a whole and not for the 1% at the top. That is what this energy is bringing us. And that's the direction we're headed. So if you're still in a space where you feel like the enemy of a particular person group, or you feel like a particular people group is your enemy, whether it's the right side or the left side or any certain group of people, you are automatically going in the opposite direction of where all of this energy is headed. So you're swimming against the current, which means it's like a lesson that you're not learning, and therefore you're going to have a hard time. So I'm almost trying to and I just want to say I don't consider myself perfect at this. I'm preaching to the choir. I aim for this, but I'm not perfect at it. And again, I still think you can have opinions. You can still maybe align more with one side or the other side politically. But at the end of the day, I really think we need to get away from a two-party system altogether. I believe that our future does not involve a two-party system, and that eventually, possibly in our lifetimes, we will get to a place where we're actually no longer in a two-party system and our government, kind of falls apart and we need to build something else, because the system, it had a great purpose. It was a totally different system here in America from what had been, in England, right? So it had a purpose. It was totally different. It was revolutionary. It was the time of the American Revolution, right? But that system since then, over the last 250 years, has been corrupted and broken, and things have changed behind the scenes, and different laws have been made that have basically allowed this system to be twisted and manipulated so that people could get really rich, and so that people as a whole could lose more and more power, and we could be taxed more and more and more. And so now the system no longer works, and now it's time for another revolution where we break down what we have and we build something different, because this is just not working. Now I have no idea what that would or could look like, but I do believe that ultimately that's where we're headed. Because if you look at where we are now, I mean, already the system is falling apart. Already we don't trust the system. It's not working very well. It's a mess, right? It's a mess. And so anyway, if we want to move towards a better version of what we have, that will absolutely require people coming together. And that sounds like such a big, lofty idea, but I think the important lesson and realization here is that it doesn't work unless it happens on an individual level. So it's kind of like pointing out some big collective issue for humanity and being like, hey, that needs to change, but then not actually doing anything yourself to help change that. It's the same thing. If we want to move to a place collectively where we don't hate each other just because we have different beliefs, and which, again, at the end of the day, I think they're not actually that different, that we actually kind of want the same thing when you get down to the bottom of it. We need to look inside of ourselves and be like, what can I do? How can I get to a place of more neutrality and not being so triggered and not being quite so influenced by this or by that or by this person, by this network, by this TikTok video, Because again, if you look at history as an example, how many times have wars happened, have just different divisive events happened that kind of trickled from the top down? It's confusing, and I think history itself is kind of a mess, and that we don't have all of the truth, right? But, as a whole, I think a lot of the divisive events that have happened throughout our history have been things that trickled from the top down. It came down from these people who made decisions at the top that had nothing to do with us, and it trickled down into our systems and into our laws and into our ways of life. And then we just kind of bought into it because, this is what we're supposed to do. Oh, those people are bad? Okay, let's go to war. If we are left to our own devices, and I don't mean like anarchy, but if we are left to our own if we are left to our own devices where we are not being told by someone who has more power than we do that somebody or some group or some country or some whatever is bad, I don't think most of us naturally think that way. Our core energy is love. Most people want good things for other people. Most people are good people. And I know it doesn't feel that way when you're watching the news or you're getting a triggering video on your social media feed. But from my experience, I have to remember that we are being bombarded with a lot of the negative events performed by negative people performing crimes and horrible things of the world. And, that is there, but most people are good. At our core, we were created with love, to love each other, to love other people. And so if we're focusing on that and we're going inside and trying to grow and trying to live our lives out of this place of love and thoughtfulness for other people, then all of a sudden you realize this system doesn't work. So next time you're triggered, I just want to challenge you. And again, I'm not perfect at this. I'm doing this too. I want to challenge you to try to be understanding before you get triggered, to try to give the other side, the other people group, the other person that you don't agree with, to try to come from a place of understanding, thinking, you know what? At the end of the day, chances are this is not an evil person and that maybe I'm not seeing the whole picture. Maybe they have a personal experience that affects their belief on this. Maybe they've been told something that wasn't true, or maybe it is true and I'm believing something that isn't true. And therefore I'm triggered because I have the wrong information. Don't let the habit, because it is quite literally a habit of getting triggered and being like, yeah, what that guy said. Why don't other people see this as a problem? Can't they see the truth in plain light? Let's for a second pause that train that wants to take off and just think, maybe I can be open-minded here. Maybe that person at the end of the day wants something very close to what I want. Because again, and I don't know if this aligns with your beliefs or not, but I believe that collectively, we're kind of creating the world that we're living in, right? Mentally, energetically, we're creating this world. So if we continue to get triggered and hate each other, we're going to create more of that. We're going to continue in this way of life that involves a lot of hatred and involves a lot of re-triggering and re-pointing fingers and doubling down. And that is not only is that harming you because it's a bad energy to sit in, it's going to divide us collectively. If collectively we can get, I don't even think it has to be a majority, but a large group of people who goes, you know what, let's stop this behavior. Let's maybe detach ourselves emotionally and mentally from the two-party system. Let's kind of detach ourselves from getting caught up in this matrix, and let's try to come from a more neutral point where I don't necessarily have to align with everything that, this party believes. I don't have to align with that party. I'm going to come just from a place of being a human being and being in the middle and assuming the best of people. Because division only serves people who are in power. It does not serve us lowly people at the bottom, the normies, right? Humanity, the people. Now, but we are such a larger group. Imagine the power we would have if we stopped seeing each other as the enemy and came together to create something better, okay? The division that is being handed to us on a silver platter does not serve us, but it does serve those who are feeding that to us. So I feel a little bit like this podcast was just one long rant, but it is a message that I've just been wanting to shout from the rooftops, and I can't always find the words, and people aren't always in a place to hear it. But I just want to encourage you to just kind of chew on this as a thought and kind of reflect on your own life where you might have some of those tendencies to be kind of really on one side or really on the other side, or different groups that you might really have a lot of anger towards, and recognize that maybe it's not all bad, or maybe all the information they have isn't wrong, or maybe just whatever it is, coming to a more neutral place, assuming the best of people, and trying to energetically, mentally move towards a place where it's us against the government, not different groups hating each other because our government told us to. So if I just hope that gave you something to think about, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. I know I'm only a couple of episodes in here, but if you would be so kind as to leave a review, if you got even an inkling of goodness out of this, I would be ever so appreciative, because it is a brand new podcast and it is a very populated platform. So appreciate that so much. Again, I always have my email in the show notes. If you have any topics that you'd like me to cover or discuss, or you just have a question and want to start a conversation, I'm here if you need me. And thank you again for listening to Dare Me to Prosper.